Welcome to the Paid Search Podcast. My name is Chris, and today we're going to talk about Google Ads. I have a question from a listener, and we have a very special segment later in the show with Joey Bidner, who is going to absolutely blow your mind with his ChatGPT ideas, ways that he can process data faster than I can, faster than you can, in ways that are impossible for the human mind to do. Save you hours and hours of work and generate amazing results for stuff that would take you an eternity to try and do yourself. So it's really great stuff. You're going to love it, so stick around for that. Let's jump into the question from Peter, who sent in a question via paidsearchpodcast.com. You can send in your questions there. Peter says, Chris, I'm a performance-based marketer for brick and mortar shops with online stores. My business model is based on ROAS results, so accuracy of sales is very important. This is what I need help with. I'm a fan of the show and have been using Optio for a few years now because of you. You don't talk about reporting much, but Optio does a great job of generating gorgeous custom reports that my customers can understand. Thanks for recommending it. And I'll stop there because Peter just led me into the ad read. Guys, if you have not used Optio, take Peter's advice, not my advice. Peter wrote this in. I'm not making this up. He wrote this in and he said, Chris, you haven't even mentioned the reporting very much. And he's right. I have not. The reporting feature in Optio is wonderful. I mean, every reporting platform out there does a little bit differently. And you can be really picky about the way that you want it done. And in the end, you want it in a simple, understandable format for your clients to understand what they're looking at. And Optio does a phenomenal job. I've tried it and I've talked about it in episodes way past, but it is absolutely something that you can't ignore. It is a wonderful tool to help you report to your clients, whether you're working in-house with a boss who needs a weekly report from you, or you need something emailed daily to yourself, or you want to send something to all of your clients. You have 25, 50 clients of your own that you want to send them to. That is an amazing opportunity for Optio to save you time and effort by generating these reports and sending them on your behalf. It's a wonderful tool. You're going to love their custom reports. You can try Optio reporting for free along with all the other tools that they offer at optio.com/PSP. That's opteo.com/PSP for that special 2-month free trial. Okay, let's continue on with Peter's comment here. He says, at MozCon 2024, I learned about inaccuracies in GA4 due to cookie rejections. Because of that, Google Ads attribution is moved to direct traffic in GA4, which causes a dramatic lowering of the conversions in Google Ads. I've seen this in action in multiple accounts, often where clients are telling me we're clearly getting sales from products that we're advertising. The sales are coming from out of state, so they know that they're from the ads, but the campaign is showing no sales at all. How do you get accurate sales conversion tracking data in your Google Ads accounts? Well, Peter, this is a very deep question because there's a lot of technical aspects that I'm not going to be the best to speak to, but I'll tell you what I do. And I'm going to answer your question directly because you implied that you're using GA4 for all of your conversion tracking. Now, you should know, and those of you that are listening should know, that it is not a requirement for you to use GA4 for your conversion tracking. You can use manually created codes that you place on your website. And honestly, Peter, that's what I do. That is my first go-to solution for conversion tracking. That's always what I love to do because it doesn't have a middleman. Okay? It does not have that GA4 tracking system that sometimes, I don't like to worry about the mystery between how that conversion is being interpreted through GA4 and then imported back into Google Ads. So my suggestion, even for those of you that are doing conversion bidding with transaction value, right? If you're a business, as Peter's describing, that has an online store, and you need that transaction value assigned with your conversion, it can't just be a conversion. It must be a conversion, a purchase with a transaction value assigned to it. In order to make that work, you can assign a dynamic feature into that conversion tracking, and you don't have to use GA4. There are ways to do that, and that is one way that I find is a little bit more reliable method. If you're not an e-commerce person, client, company, whatever, and you are not using that, then absolutely, I think there's no reason not to use the manually created conversions. If you're wondering where to do it, you go into the conversions section in Google Ads, you click on new conversion action, you choose website, go through all the prompts that it forces you to do, but eventually you'll get the opportunity to manually create a conversion. That's what I prefer. I prefer maximum control, and it's the most direct way of measuring your conversions, where you get to choose what page the conversion action is tracked on, exactly where that code is placed. You get to see everything. I really value transparency with that because, as Peter described, a loss due to inaccuracies from tracking and cookies and things like that could lead to you not getting credit for the work that you're actually doing for your client or for your business. So I hope that is useful to you. Thank you, Peter, for your question. And we're moving right on to the main section of the show. The main section is with Joey Bidner, and we're going to talk about ChatGPT. So let's go there now. Joey, thank you for joining me here. I am excited to have you. You've been pretty much a regular guest on the podcast, so people know your name and your voice. I appreciate you taking the time. And Joey, you're gonna share with me something today that I'm not exactly not explored a whole lot into it. So I'm anxious to learn. Anytime that can help my Google Ads accounts perform better, I'm interested. So what are we going to talk about today?
Yeah. Thanks again for having me, by the way. But yeah, so today I wanted to talk about ChatGPT and how I use it for Google Ads management. Now, the thing with ChatGPT is I know that when it first came out, there was all this fear that it's like so much automation, it's going to take our jobs. And I see it as just a great tool that we get to use to help speed up our the things that we need to do day to day. So what I'm primarily going to be talking about today is how I use ChatGPT for data analysis in particular, and how it helps me crunch the numbers, how it helps me get insights that I couldn't even get before because of how it's able to analyze sentiment of search terms and interesting stuff like that. I'm also going to talk about how I use it for ad copywriting. For idea generation, for a lot of little things with ad copywriting as well. But I think those are the main topics I'm going to share today, and I'm going to share some real life examples. I even want to read out to you some of the prompts that I use, so you can see how easy it is to just dive in and get the answers you want.
Okay, cool. Well, one thing I'm wondering, I don't know if you're planning on going over to this or not, but I know that there is a different level of ChatGPT. There is the
Mhm.
free, public, and then there's the paid. What we're going to be
Yeah,
discussing here, does it require paid?
great question. No, what we're going to be talking about can absolutely be done all with the free version. The only difference, and it's good that you started here because the only what we're going to be talking about is using ChatGPT in the capacity of when we upload data to ChatGPT. So we're going to be, downloading a search term report, downloading our data at the campaign level, and uploading it to ChatGPT now, and then asking questions. Now, in order to upload a sheet, yes, you do need to pay for that, but you can just copy paste a Google Sheet into ChatGPT for free. Okay.
Hmm.
So you absolutely can do it for free. The only thing is, if we are on the free version and you're doing that method of, okay, like, export my search term data into a sheet, you're going to copy that sheet, paste it into ChatGPT as the first step before we start asking it questions. The one thing you're going to want to do is when you paste it, it's going to look like a big data mess. And then you just need to write to ChatGPT, organize this data into a readable format. Use that line. And then it's going to go, okay. And it's going to make it a big table exactly how you see it in Google Sheets. And then you can
Oh,
go and start asking questions. So this will absolutely be accessible to the free. That said, I pay for the premium version. It's only 20 bucks a month. And you can just like upload sheets. It's supposed to be a little bit better, but for the data analysis part, it's pretty like straightforward use of ChatGPT. So you don't need to pay for the upgraded version.
okay. Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, already
Mm,
something I would have immediately not understood. So there's the line: organize this data into a readable format, something like that. Is that
yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah. And then you'll see it. It will just then give it to you in like table, charts, columns.
Okay.
And then that's when you go to work.
Right. Okay. Okay. I'm already in. I
Yeah.
might it sounds good so far. Let's jump in. So what's first?
So the first thing to what I want you to wrap your head around as well is what ChatGPT is really used for. And the way I look at it, it's kind of like a personal assistant that's there to give you the answers you want of your about your data. So if I'm pretending and if I had somebody to comb through my data for me and I had questions about how is this performing? How is that performing? Can you tell me this? Like all those questions we can ask ChatGPT. So the non-sexy version of things, like the easy stuff, obviously, is just your basic data questions. Hey, if I upload my keywords or my search terms, what's my high performing keyword? What's my most expensive keyword? That's the easy stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously, that stuff we don't necessarily need ChatGPT for, but it's kind of cool to have if you just want to streamline and you want to get a specific piece of information out of your data. But what I find a bit more interesting is when I want to look at some analysis from a bit more of a general point of view. I'll give you an example. I had a client who sells they're a designer brand, right? They sell designer brands. Well, let's just pretend it's Nike shoes. I have a reseller that sells Nike shoes. Obviously, we want our search terms to have mostly Nike terms in them, right? Nike red size 9. But I started noticing there was a decent amount of conversions for high funnel terms. Just red shoe, size 9 shoe. Typically, when you're looking at that, you think, I don't want those search terms.
Hmm.
But before I get too hasty, I want to know what the difference is in a ratio perspective of what is my performance of high funnel search terms versus branded search terms. I want to see it bucketed, right? So what
Right.
we could what I do, and I'm going to read you the prompt that I use, okay? Is I would take my search terms, I would, have that search term list with all the columns I want, cost, clicks, conversions, revenue, export that in the ways that we mentioned, put it in ChatGPT, and this is what I would write. Here is a search term report containing all the Google Ads search terms from our shopping campaigns. Analyze this data and organize search terms that contain branded terms and those that don't. A branded term is anything that contains, I'll say Nike. Please consider misspellings and tell me the efficiency between search terms containing brand terms and those that don't. Report the cost difference, conversion value difference, and the return on ad spend difference as buckets of branded versus non-branded search terms. And what does it give me? It gives me a little table that says non-branded search terms, branded search terms, and then it tells you the cost, the return on ad spend, and I can see point blank 2 seconds
Hmm.
is high funnel terms in this case profitable or not? And then I can make the decision. Do I want to include high funnel terms? Yes or no?
Hmm. Yeah.
Did did I just blow your mind or am I just, spinning my own wheels? But I think that's
No,
pretty cool.
no, I mean, I think that's really interesting, um, and absolutely critically important. Surely there's more complicated situations that this would happen in, because immediately when you describe that, because I do those same kind of things myself directly using search term filters, because I can do contains, does not contain, and I can create complicated filters in Google Ads. And I mean, old fashioned pencil, and I just write down what's the ROAS when it includes Nike, what's the ROAS when it doesn't include Nike, and then I can include the misspellings as well in that filter. So it's am I missing anything by using ChatGPT to do that rather than just doing it with the filters? Or is it the same result?
So I think you're right. You absolutely probably could do it with the same result.
Okay.
With the same result. So that's a good point. There's still a manual way to do this in platform.
Okay.
Um, but as I start layering on more and more
That's
examples, I
what
think
I
you'll see
figured. Yeah.
things get a little crazy. And
Right.
what we're going to talk about, this was just kind of one example that I used initially, just to kind of see how you could really bucket things and how
Okay.
it uses the semantic analysis of like the actual wording. But we're going to get into how I use it for for ad group analysis, campaign analysis before we get into ad copy. So,
Okay.
um, but yeah, that's just kind of one example. Another cool example is how I use it for competitor search term identification. I'll put my search terms in and I'll say, identify all the competitor names that you see. And ChatGPT will be able to distinguish what the difference is between, a term that is, let's say, a question, or a branded term versus a competitive term. It would be able to tell you that. So if you don't even know what all your competitors are, let's say you're in law and you want to negative all the lawyers' names that you see that are your competitors' lawyers' names. If you've
Mm,
ever done law,
yeah.
initially a
Big.
ton of your search terms are lawyers' names, and you have to filter through and okay, A. James, Scott Fitzgerald, you have to find them all. ChatGPT can help pull those, copy paste them, negative keyword list, like streamlines, right?
Okay. Okay. And I assume with enough finagling around, you can tell it to give you just the first names, and the ones that include a space, you can tell it to give you in quotes or something like that. So,
Oh yeah,
okay, that's okay. I figured, I'm like, I got you beat, but now I'm like, okay, well, that definitely takes time. There's a lot of
yeah.
clicking involved. And you have me with the lawyers there. I mean, that is always a massive issue. Just when you launch a lawyer campaign, that you just get names, just
And
constant names. So, yeah,
And
that's
like you
cool.
said, there's always like you get a name, you get somebody that writes the first name, somebody that writes the initials. Let's say
Right.
you just want the last names. You could get that list and you can tell ChatGPT, just give me the last names.
Oh,
Separate the
yeah.
last names and the first names if you want them. You can tell it to do whatever you want. It's
Mm,
crazy.
that's okay. Okay, that's cool. Okay, that's a practical use. All right. I'm nibbling. All right, go on.
Okay, now I'm gonna really hit you with the home run.
Oh boy.
This is where things really I really realized the power of ChatGPT.
Okay.
And it was how it's able to actually understand sentiment between search terms. So the first thing I asked ChatGPT is, when analyzing the search term data, what are the various forms of sentiment that you can identify? So it tells me, okay, I can identify positive sentiment, which means search terms that have best, affordable, excellent, high quality. I can understand negative sentiment, worst, problem, expensive, poor quality. I can understand comparative sentiment, so search terms that have versus, better than, cheaper than. I can identify intent-driven sentiment, buy, purchase, order, discount, free trial, subscribe. I can
Nice.
identify problem-solving sentiment, how to, solution, help with, troubleshoot. I can identify urgency, now, today, urgent. Or I can identify brand-specific or competitive specific. So I said, okay, with my search term data, using the various sentiment criteria that you can identify, analyze this search term report from our Google Ads campaign and give me a sentiment report categorizing what percent of my search terms fall into each category and produce a sheet reflecting which sentiment terms fall into which sentiment categories and their performance behavior. So I want to see return on ad spend. I want to see cost, clicks, blah, 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 and it'll give you a beautiful sheet that says, oh, like your um, problem solving search terms are actually not getting a lot of spend, but they're very highly profitable. Your
Wow.
urgencies, and this was really helpful. I use this in an example where I had a client that sells boat soap. Okay, they sell soap for boats. And a lot of people search for like all kinds of things. They don't really know if there is boat soap. They don't know the brands. They're searching how to clean my boat, this product versus that product. Like it wasn't as clear cut as I want boat soap, right? So I wanted to know what parts of the funnel should I be focusing on. So it broke it down into this way where I could see of all the search term data, where is my profitability in the sentiment of my searchers, and what am I leveraging and what am I missing out on? Mind blown, or did I talk too much?
No, no, man, because I mean, these are what you're describing are commands that take honestly years to see past the, most people when they start Google Ads, they just see the matrix, right? They just see numbers and confusion and letters and words, and they don't understand what they're looking at. It takes years to be
Mm,
able to look at a search term list and see it for what it is. The
mm,
sentiment, high funnel, low funnel, how to, the value difference between each of these short searches versus long tail searches. I mean, you have to train your eye to be able to see it. And so what you're saying is that you can take something that requires years and years of practice, and through coaching of this AI system, you can have it just feed you that information in a manipulation way that you control. So just to be clear, um, you're the one that's manipulating this data. There aren't predetermined prompts, right?
yeah, no,
It's a completely open field of you
yeah.
describing, now do this with it. Now do this with it, right?
Yeah, and and when I read the prompts out that I use, I don't want it to be like, oh, these are the prompts you want to copy paste. Like this
Uh-huh.
is just me talking to it in the way that I would talk to an assistant. So I
Okay.
want to motivate people to really just put your questions in as you have them. Like I don't use any predetermined prompts, all that stuff that people will be out there selling you packages of prompts. It's all clickbait. Talk to it like you would talk to an assistant that you're working with, whose job it is to chew through your data. And you, as the ad manager, are the one that's asking the questions and know what questions to ask, you
Right.
know? So,
Yeah, and that seems like the difference is where the real value is that you know what questions to ask. I
yeah,
could still I don't see this being a tool that a newbie being able to manipulate their data because they don't know what questions to ask. It's, I have a problem. I don't even know how to analyze my data.
yeah,
This tool will not help you analyze the data when you don't know how to analyze it in the first place, when you don't know the questions to ask. So it doesn't solve that, but it can solve the problem of a manager who understands but just can't read through the matrix of data as quickly as this does.
exactly. Yeah. And I guess we should have started with that actually, because that's a really solid point. This is not a turnkey solution to do the work for you. It's like you
Okay.
still need to come up with the questions, and it's just an assistant if you've got good questions about your data. And
Okay.
it's not something that I routinely use, like, oh, every Monday I'm going to ask it these questions. It's just while I'm looking through the data, I'm like, man, what I want to know what the difference is between that and
Okay.
that. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, put it in ChatGPT and just start going. And I want to segue from that because with that prompt that I just mentioned to you about the positive sentiment, about the sentiment analysis, what's cool is that beyond that, like let's say that gives you that chart, right? That says, oh, these are all your bucketed search terms of you can then drill into it. And that's where things get special. So let's say it identified that I've got a really high profitability on the how-to segment. Then I could ask ChatGPT, okay, what are my most profitable uh problem solving search terms? Then
Uh,
it will give you those. Okay, what are my most expensive problem solving search terms? Then it'll give you those, and you
uh,
can dig in further and further and just keep talking to it. Like, and I will sometimes have conversations, quote unquote, conversations with my data where I'll have that initial prompt, and then I'm just going back and forth with the system, like telling it to continuously pull from that report, what's this, what's that, and then I'm working with that to see the full picture and make decisions.
yeah. I could, it seems like I could equate this to what I often call my, red flag, hunting for red flags,
Mm-hmm.
so essentially I'm going along and I'm just doing my normal process. But when I would pull this tool up is when I suddenly can't figure out something that lies deeper. I see something wrong, and I see a trend. I was looking at a client earlier today, and for the past, like 6 weeks, they've steadily had a lower conversion rate, and I'm looking and I'm hunting, and now I'm thinking, well, I should possibly do take all my search terms from the past 6 weeks and compare it to the previous 6 weeks, and maybe there's some kind of trend. Maybe there's some kind of,
Mm,
hey, you have 60% more of these kind of searches compared to what you had before. And I mean, I'll tell you what,
yeah.
I'm tempted to just say that's it for the podcast. I'm like, I want to go try this.
You know what? Like that's such a good point of comparing buckets of data. One thing I did recently was I took all my search terms, okay, I exported it into a sheet from the last 6 months as of last month or like 2 months ago, right? And then I copied all the search terms, basically 6 months of data, into a, or no, I think it was 3 months of data. I copied just that one column, I put it in its own sheet. Then I copied all the search terms, more recent search terms, so the last 30 days. And I copied all those search terms and I put it in column two. So in
Yeah.
column A of this Excel sheet, I've got the last 6 months or 3 months. Column B, I've got the last 30 days. I upload that to ChatGPT and I say, can you identify any new search terms in the last 30 days that you did not like? And I'll just say column A is the last 3 months. Column B is search terms the last 30 days. Identify any new search terms because I want to see like, sometimes, especially with stuff like broad match, even phrase match, if you increase your budgets, sometimes the system can start getting a little
Yeah.
wiggly
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
go after search terms that you might not have gotten before. So you're
Right.
trying to find that efficiency drop and like, oh yeah, now you're getting a lot more of those how-to search terms, right? Then
Mm.
you can take those search terms, do a sentiment analysis like we just did, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible.
I mean, that's okay. I see it because I do the same thing, but I have to do it one layer at a time. I find a trend and I'll do a search term filter where I will filter for the word for, FOR, right? I'll
Mm,
do a space, FOR, and then space. That's a great filter that I love to use because it
cool.
shows me intent,
Yeah.
industry specific, X for Y. That's usually a great kind of search, but that's a very manual process, and you have to first be able to spot it. So this tool could, point out things like that without me having to spot it first, which becomes the main issue when you're dealing with lines and lines and lines of data. And it sounds like search terms are the key component here. I mean, like, it doesn't sound like is there anything that you have and that goes beyond search terms because it
Oh
sounds like
yeah.
that's a big thing.
Yeah, no, search terms are definitely the most interesting because you're dealing with like customer sentiment and
Okay.
like language and it can analyze that. But then also looking at keywords, one thing that I love doing, especially for new clients, where let's say they have an account that's like, it's not horrible, like it's pretty good, but you notice, man, they got a lot of broad match keywords, a lot of phrase match keywords, a lot of exact match keywords.
Yeah.
Before I start pausing stuff, I want to know the efficiency between each of them. I'll export all of those keywords and I'll basically say, okay, and again, I'm going to read you this prompt,
Yeah.
you know, analyze this keyword report and let me know the performance difference between broad match, phrase match, and exact match. Put them in a chart in its own row to show me the performance in the columns. Report the cost, conversion value, and return on ad spend. Then you can say exclude keywords that contain, like, and then I'll put the brand name because I don't really
Sure.
want the branded part to inflate a certain
Right.
thing.
Right.
So then, and it'll just say broad match is getting you this return on ad spend, phrase match is getting you this return, So it's like quick and
Yeah.
easy. And that's one of those things I'm so surprised that in platform you can't see that as like a chart, like the same way you could see display versus search, or no, let's say search partners versus search. It gives you that little chart,
Uh-huh.
or a better example is device. You can always see that chart where it shows tablets versus cell phone
Yep.
versus
Yep.
desktop. I was always so surprised they don't have one of those for match types.
Sure.
Um,
I think they
so this
used
is a
to.
quick and easy one.
I think they used to have something like that, but of course, things seem to mysteriously disappear over time for
Hmm.
little tools like that. But yeah, okay, okay. The keyword thing, I'll tell you the truth, that one doesn't hook me as much because I can do filters at keyword level, and that's not as overwhelming as search terms, right?
Yeah,
Keywords.
that's why I started with that.
Yeah, I mean, you got me on, you put the good stuff up front so that you
Yeah.
you know how to bait. Okay. All right. Well, yeah. So what else can we do?
What else? Okay, well, this one again, I started with really strong. I also have some good stuff saved for the end, but we're in the middle
Okay,
right
okay.
now. Here's another one that's cool, but I imagine you have a manual way of doing it. But I'm just going to share another example. I have a client that had a lot of ad groups of standard search campaigns and DSA campaigns. And DSA, sometimes I love DSA. I'm not going to lie. I have certain situations where DSA is perfect, but I want to see the face value of what's what. So I'll do the same thing that I did for the keywords of analyzing broad versus phrase. I'll go to my ad group view. I'll export all the data from the ad groups. And there's a column. I think the column is uh, ad group status, and it's like it's standard or dynamic, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
you can
Yeah.
just say analyze in the same way, analyze the performance between all the ad groups that have standard versus dynamic in the status column, and it'll do the same thing. And just A versus B. Here's your overall, and then again, you can dig into it. Of my standard, what are my poor performers? What are my high performers? Of those, you know what I mean? So you can just dig
Yeah.
in, so you can just quickly identify what's failing. And then let's say it identifies your poor performers. You click into that, then you can see, oh, I got a lot of broad match keywords. No wonder. It just helps you kind of get
Yeah.
to that analysis. And again, this is helpful for campaigns. Like I used that one for an account that had like hundreds of ad groups, right? Like, and then they were all like DSA standard duplications of each other. And it was just like, it allowed me to distill things to have a starting point,
Okay.
a
Yeah.
starting point where to go. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, I mean that I like it. I like it. What else?
So, okay. So do you want to go to ad copy? This is where things might blow your mind again.
This is yeah, I know that you wanted to talk about ad groups and stuff, and I feel like a lot of that kind of falls into the same keyword stuff, but I'll tell you, I do consulting. I know you do consulting as well.
Mhm.
And Joey, the hardest part of doing a consulting call with someone and building a campaign with them and stuff, I find after doing this for a long time, it's writing the ad copy.
Yeah.
Like I always save a solid block of time to help them churn through ad copywriting because it is the
Hmm.
hardest part to get them to understand how to write in 30 character headlines that has call to action, benefit, feature, using the keyword. Like they just don't get it. They're like, oh, just put call
Yeah.
me now. I'm like, that's not going to work. You don't. So I am very interested in this for very selfish reasons.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm of the same boat. Like I always found of all the tasks I had to do in Google Ads, ad copy was the one that took the most time.
Yeah,
That said, it was one that I always enjoyed. So it's not to say this is I'm offloading this to a computer. If you enjoy the process of the creative ad copy
sure.
writing, which I do, and if anything, this just helps me again get to the end result quicker and with
Mhm.
even more creativity sometimes. So before we get to your point of like the quick things and what a client can do to just like help their ad copy, I want to kind of start from the top from an ad manager's perspective
Yeah,
on how it can help. So the first thing when it comes to a new client is I want to like understand all of the features, benefits, problems, all the things about whatever product they're selling. And ChatGPT can help distill the information down for me. So what I'll do is I'll take, let's say, a product page, I'll copy paste, and again, I still like read the stuff, and it's not to say that I don't read it, but if it's a really big one, I'll copy paste the URL into ChatGPT, and I'll say, scan this URL and list for me all the features, benefits, all of the problems that this solves for the user base, and it will just start giving me some point form things that I can start using for, different calls to action. And I can say, okay, like take this call to action and give me 5 different versions of it. It can give you varieties of ways to really um write and look at things. But the big thing is it is very good at understanding language and then giving you the pieces of information that you will then need to write that ad copy. So that's like one of the first big
and
things that I like it for. Sorry, go ahead.
and I think that's a extremely complicated kind of thing that this can immediately solve. I'm very interested in this for one of the biggest issues that I see with ad copywriting is
Mhm.
knowing your industry too much or being in too deep to be able to write your own
Mm,
ad copy and to be able to speak to people that
Mm.
don't have 3 decades of understanding. Very common. I see doctors, very technical kind of campaigns where they'll say, use this abbreviation and say it this way and use this kind of vocabulary I've never heard of in my life. And they're putting that in the ad copy. And I'm like, no, this is horrible. Like you're not approachable at all. So I feel like ChatGPT could help you to overcome that in too deep syndrome that many people have.
You could straight up take that language, put it in ChatGPT and say, simplify this. Simplify
Simplify.
this.
Yeah.
And I love the simplify. Sometimes even if sometimes like I get clients where even reading what their website's about, I have a hard time understanding what they sell or what
Right.
they do because of what you said. They're too, so I will say, simplify this for me.
Yeah.
Tell me what kind of client needs this? What does it solve for them from a
Oh,
basic standpoint of
yeah.
language? And it will help with that.
That's that's great. And
Another,
now one
yep,
one thing, I
yep,
hate to interrupt, but
no,
I
no.
thought that you had to pay to be able to have ChatGPT to go to outside URLs.
Oh, you know what? I could be wrong about that one. To
Because
scan
I've
a website,
yeah, I think I've pasted URLs in before, and it's like I can't do that.
interesting.
So okay, so
Okay,
that may be the case. I don't know, but
yeah.
I believe
But
that's a paid thing.
what you could do then is just copy paste all the text.
Oh, you
Yeah,
are
yeah.
savvy. You know how to get
Oh
around
yeah.
those paywalls, don't you?
Oh yeah. Yeah, just copy paste all the text in there. You can put endless amounts into
Okay.
ChatGPT.
Okay.
It's no problem.
Cool.
So, okay, to your point though about character counts, that is a big one. Sometimes I struggle with it. I'm like, I want to write this, and I'm like 3 characters over. I'll put it in ChatGPT and I'll say, summarize this, and I'll say, give me 10 examples. Summarize this in 30 characters or less, and give me 10 versions of it, or 5 versions, or whatever. And it does it. It's so sweet. And then you can even say, to save you the trouble, capitalize the letter of each word, like make it title case, make it
Nice.
sentence case.
Yeah.
Um, oh, I can't tell
Yeah.
you how many times I hate title case because my caps lock button sticks, and then every other letter is capitalized that I don't want. I get the automation to help with that one. That's for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The character limit is such a hamper on my creativity.
Mhm.
And to have something that has an endless thesaurus of possibilities to try different words, that's very interesting there. Good. I like that one.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, for ad copy, that one you can really the ad copy one is a bit trickier because you need to really also know what questions to ask it. You can't just write, okay, ChatGPT, here's the information. Write me 10 good headlines. It's going to
Yeah.
write you kind of shitty headlines. Oh, excuse my language, kind of terrible headlines. You need to kind of give it a little bit more juice, right? So I want to share with you a prompt that I use. Again, this is me just like writing this. This one I did get a little bit of help from some other friends that also have been using it, and they told me what they put in, and I kind of sculpted this thing. But I would say, um, use unique ad copy for a Google Ads campaign that matches the value provided in each of these pages I'm providing you. Give me 15 headlines, 30 characters or less max, including spaces and description, including spaces, 5 descriptions, 90 characters, blah, 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 all those things. But then I
Okay.
say,
Yeah.
use emotion in the headlines. Be sure to include features, benefits, and calls to action.
Hmm.
Again, capitalize each word, blah, blah, blah. If possible, use numbers or symbols in some of the headlines to help them stand out. And the call to action should be, let's say it's a free webinar or whatever. So giving it those few extra prompts of like, use emotion, use calls to action, give me a few different versions. You
Yeah.
kind of need to do that because if you just put some stuff in and say, make me 10 Google Ads headlines, it will come out pretty vanilla. Um, so
Okay. So
and
it
then
it sounds like when you come up with the right way to say it, it sounds like because it seems like you're reading off of a script here because in just
right now,
watching
yeah,
you.
because I
So
I
so
saved them.
it sounds like a very good tip that you're not saying is once you find the right way to say it, save it.
Yeah. Well, ChatGPT also saves all your conversations, right? So
Oh.
even when I was preparing for this call, I just went through my conversations and I thought, oh yeah, this was my
Okay.
keyword one. This is my, so yeah, it does save it, but I agree. You absolutely can like save the things that you ask it initially that worked and then use them
Use
again.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Now, I want to share an example of something that probably saved me like a solid, like, I would say, I want to say like 10 hours of work. Okay.
Oh,
I had a client that offers the free webinar. Okay. And the free webinar is like our lead magnet. It's for a SaaS product, right? And they had like each webinar is for a specific thing. They've got like 50 webinars and blog, but like
oh boy.
these, yeah, it was
Yeah.
like, and they wanted to use all these for remarketing. Awesome strategy, and it works. But I had to write ad copy for all of these. Um, so because we're using it in a demand gen campaign, which you can use ad copy for, and it's the thing. So I had to effectively write good ad copy for like 50 different
Oh,
unique webinars.
oh
Okay.
boy.
And luckily, though, the landing pages of these webinars had a good, solid paragraph about what the webinar was about, the value you're going to get. So, anyways, allow me to read you the prompt. I actually, in my last example, used part of this prompt already, but I'm just going to read the whole thing. So, this
Yeah.
is what I said. I said, I will give you a series of URLs. Each of these URLs will be the target for an ad. Each URL is a lead magnet to get a user to submit their contact for access to a webinar of high value. Browse each URL and read the content to understand what the webinar is about and the value it gives the potential visitor. For each URL, write unique ad copy for a Google Ads campaign, blah, 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 blah. That's,
With
everything that I'm about to
the,
say is what I just said.
right, right.
And then I said, basically, put all of this into a Google sheet, into an Excel file for a tab for each URL,
Oh, wow.
right? So what it gave me, and this is the paid version, $20 a month. Okay. It
Ah,
gave me an Excel file that I could then open and download that had a tab for each of my ad groups, you could say, each of my URLs that I wanted unique ad copy for. And it had all the headlines, all the descriptions with the criteria that I gave it that I already knew works. And then I go in and I modify it a little bit, but it gave me a starting point, right? It's not to say that I just used all of them, copy paste and put them into Google, but it was like, ooh, this is a good headline. And this one's kind of soft. Oh, I like these two headlines. I'm going to combine those. And
right.
it gave me a starting point. It gave me like a
Yeah.
content sheet that I could then go through. And then I spent about 20 minutes going through all of them and I'm done. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's when I was like, holy
Yeah.
moly, this
I
is
mean,
amazing.
and you're not even giving credit for you talked about 10 hours of work. Probably 5 hours of work there is reading those paragraphs and somehow consuming what this SaaS product is about and trying to write that in a non-stupid way that's going to embarrass you in front of the client. You're going to say like, this is not what we do. Like that's the
Mhm.
wrong word. We don't use that word. We use this word. That alone is very tempting. So I can appreciate the creativity, but for me, what
Mm,
really pushes me to think that this could be such a valuable tool is the knowledge gap, right? It's one side of it where I don't understand it, right? And explain to me what I need to know and help me write it in a way that I can understand. And then the other side is help me to write it in a way that um, isn't too deep, the simplify discussion. So there's value on both sides here. Um, Joey, this is better than I expected. Um, I'm glad you pushed me on it. And you're right. I need to explore it. I'll see if I can dig up $20 somewhere to see if I can pay for this tool and try it. It's
I
going to
mean,
be
use the
tough.
free version first. Use the free version first.
I,
I did
I
for a long time.
you say that, but to have ChatGPT look at some of my clients' web pages and to spit
Mm,
back some information, I'm immediately very interested because there's a lot of clients that I have that I don't fully understand what they do. And I would love to have it spit back at me in a simplified kind
yeah.
of way just to make sure I'm not missing something.
Mhm.
That aspect seems very interesting, but wow. Is that is that it?
So that's the majority of the examples that
Okay.
I
Okay.
wanted to share. And I guess that, as a final note, I just want to say, like, again, talk to it like you talk to a person, right? Like that is what really changed it for me.
Yeah.
At first
Okay.
I was really using it just like, give me this, give me that. If you talk to any person that way, you're going to get junk. As
Right.
soon as you give it, and again, you want to talk to it like a new intern that might not know that much about Google Ads. Like, I am about to give you all of our Google Ads search term data. I want you to do this. I want you to give it to me like that.
Mm.
I want you, and the more nuance you give it in very regular language, the better the quality gets. And don't be afraid to go back and forth with it a bit. Sometimes I'll get something that's not quite it. And I'm like, no, 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 this is what I want, not that. And it'll actually say, oh, I'm sorry, I see what you mean now. Blah, blah, blah. So sometimes it requires some back and forth. It will say, I'm sorry too.
The
As a
the the
Canadian,
the,
I
the
don't,
first
it goes a
person
long way.
to speak to me in first person from a from an an A that creeps me out. I hate it when it says I. I'm like, stop that.
Yeah, yeah. And there is one thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention when I spoke about uploading the data. And whether you do it the upload or the copy paste where you give it that prompt to make it readable. There's one little thing that I found that I need to do there's one thing that kind of glitches it when you directly download your sheet from Google Ads. You hit that download button on, let's say, search terms, or
Okay.
you from your campaign view, whatever. The first two lines of your sheet are always the date
Right.
and then another line that's something else. Delete those two lines. Like
Okay.
anything, when it's reading the columns, the first line needs to be your columns. So
Okay.
delete those first two lines in any case, because when it's reading the columns, it needs line one to be the column titles. So
Right.
that's one thing that
Okay.
I found out. It would always error when I would directly upload it. And I found out just because I had the date in column one, because that's Google's default. So
Okay.
yeah, that's a little thing I forgot to mention that I want to
Wow.
asterisk.
Yeah. Well, Joey, I appreciate you being on the show. That's very exciting for this old man to try a new tool like that. We'll see what we come up with, and I definitely want to play with it. I want to see what I can find, and we'll have you back, and we'll talk about it some more. Maybe this, maybe there's something to it. Maybe there's something to it after all. So I appreciate it. And Joey, please tell everyone how they can chat with you, a real person, and get help with their Google Ads.
Yeah, if you need help with account management or even with some extra eyes on your account through consulting, feel free to reach out to me either on LinkedIn, just Joey Bidner on LinkedIn. Send me a message there, or you can find me on my website, joeybidner.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Joey, again for being here. Thank you guys for being a part of the podcast. I will catch you guys next week.